Coming up on today's episode of The Traction Show.
मैं काम करता हूँ दिन भर 12-14 घंटे. अब मेरे को आगे टाइम पास करना है, एकदम भौकाल टाइम पास करना है.
Hi Mithun.
Hi, thanks for having me here, Abhinav.
ShareChat and Apna, these two companies are aimed at Bharat. And when I speak about Bharat, I'm reminded of this podcast that Kunal Shah had with Nitin Kamath, and they went over certain data. कि boss India में 60% of all online business happens via 5 million Indians. उससे एक बंदे को पता लगता है कि India is not really monetizable when you go to tier 2, tier 3. If you go to the grassroots, पैसा नहीं है. If पैसा नहीं है, then how are $1 billion companies sitting at this? Who are they monetizing? Where's the money?
I think what Kunal said is valid, right? And that's his story. And that's the visible data. If you go top down and look at VC metrics or macro metrics, these 5 million drive whatever 90% of the consumption, right? But that's also a consequence of what has been built today and how it has been built, right? But the fact that you cannot monetize these users is, I think, extremely debatable. I think there's a lot of money to be made, right? Maybe at a per user level, it won't show up, but at an absolute level, it's definitely there. An interesting point again, right? Like we think digital first, product first, etc. But the people who really know the pulse and how to monetize these users is FMCG and Bollywood. Right? FMCG, the sachetization of things, right? That's essentially a marketer sitting in tier 3 India and saying कि यार 5 रुपए खरीद ही नहीं पाएगा,
5 रुपए की पेप्सी,
हाँ 1 रुपए का शैम्पू बनाना ही पड़ेगा, right? And then Bollywood, you see the kind of movies, right? Like only a very small percentage of movies are really intellectual, etc. Right? The rest of it is massy, and you will be looking at a Telugu blockbuster and saying कि यार ये कौन देखता है? But fact is, लोग देखते हैं, पैसा बनता है और उनको पता है कि क्या motivation है, right? And that's, I would say, like that's how the business in ShareChat has been built. Even the engagement product, the monetization product, it's really, really sharply focused at this user behavior. Now, if you go in and use this product as a tier 1 product person, you'll find all sorts of contradictions, right? Like there's so many colors, for example, right? There are 30 CTAs on the screens. Lot of noise, पीछे म्यूजिक चल रहा है, ऐसा लग रहा है कि पार्टी चल रही है, राइट? कोई कॉन्वर्सेशन हो नहीं रहा है और लोग हजार रुपए के गिफ्ट भेज रहे हैं, राइट? इट वॉज इनसेन फॉर अस ऑल्सो टू रियलाइज द वे द रेवेन्यू स्केल, राइट? लाइक वी सॉ पीपल कमिंग बैक एंड स्पेंडिंग $20,000 a month.
So you're talking about digital gifting.
Correct.
Digital assets. I don't think tier 1 India is, as used to giving digital gifts. They probably at max would give Paytm ka gold.
Correct.
But nothing beyond that. How did it become popular in tier 2 India and Middle East? I mean, what's happened कि internet penetrate भी कर गया, that I can understand Jio, right. But इतना लिटरेसी, इतना डिजिटल लिटरेसी के बॉस आप डिजिटल गिफ्टिंग कर रहे हो.
गेम्स में जो मैकेनिक है, इट्स एसेंशियली, एंड ऑल ऑफ दीज मैकेनिक्स इज, आई डोंट नो इफ यू रेड द यूजीन वे लॉन्ग आर्टिकल ऑन स्टेटस एज अ सर्विस, राइट? व्हिच मीन्स दैट आई एज अ यूजर will pay for what gets me status that is visible to a large part of my network, right?
But it applies to all kind of humans, no?
It applies to all kind of humans, right? Now here's the difference, right? Now if you're a tier 1 user, your status blocks will be, okay, what is the next level up? I have to get maybe something worth 5 lakh rupees, right? कि मेरे को बड़ी गाड़ी खरीदनी है, गाड़ी खरीद ले तो 50 लाख रुपए का घर खरीदना है, right? और वो एक छोटे नेटवर्क को दिखाना है, मेरे को इंस्टाग्राम पे डालना है, उनसे स्टेटस चाहिए, right? Now for these users, उनको 100 रुपए में क्या स्टेटस मिलेगा, राइट? और वो किसको दिखाना है, दैट इज द इंपॉर्टेंट मोटिवेटर, राइट? एंड इफ यू इनेबल दैट मैकेनिक विच वी डिड इन चैट रूम्स, it's going to work really, really well, right? I think that's the understanding that again people don't have. Like सब सोचे monetize कैसे करते हैं, but if somebody opens Play Store top grossing, they'll see ShareChat monetizing at a scale that is similar to Tinder and Google.
It's all digital gifting.
It's all digital gifting.
Once someone buys that car wala entry, all that money is pure ShareChat.
No, so we have to pay Google tax, right?
That's okay. But you don't, there is no transaction happening between the folks.
So some of the power users who we leverage to get the mechanics and the interactions, they get a cut.
Donate a little. Achha, okay.
They get a cut. Right? So there are power hosts, etc. And they will get a cut of what is being spent in the chat room.
What are the digital motivations motivation that digital companies are exploiting or tapping into for tier 2, tier 3 India that, someone like me wouldn't even think about?
I come from a very, very engagement retention first of all, right? So I'll start from there, which according to me is an entry point for the next billion users, right? So their first touch point would be the internet, to the internet would be Android phone with WhatsApp. And in WhatsApp, their primary use case, I mean, obviously communication, primary use case would be these groups where a lot of these forwards are flowing in. Back in the day, WhatsApp allowed you an API to create groups, right? And send content. So what Ankush and Fareed actually did was they scanned a bunch of phone numbers available on these WhatsApp groups that they were running. And they said, okay, we'll create our own groups. API से hit किया, 1000 group बना दी, सब में members को add किया और content flow करने लगा, right?
So that was your MVP.
That was the MVP, right? And now here's again an interesting difference. As a tier 1 user, you'd be like, who is this random person? I don't care about it. I'm going to block and report, right? But these users were like, wow, this content is amazing, right? Super. And then we said, okay, tum bhi banao. They started creating their own content, putting it on the WhatsApp groups. Then we said, okay, यहाँ पे मत बनाओ, तुम हमारे platform पे बनाओ, वहाँ पे तुम्हें followers मिलेंगे, ये सब बढ़ेगा. And the next 3 years was just about iterating on that mechanic. The next 5 years, there's a large opportunity for somebody smart who really wants to understand these motivations and build a bunch of large companies.
Tell me more about the motivation. How can anyone, tap into their lives and figure out?
I will keep the transactional persona outside, right?
ठीक है.
The transactional persona, मैं दुकान चला रहा हूँ, मेरे 50 प्रॉब्लम है, कोई काम सॉल्व कर दो, तो खाता बुक, ओके, क्रेडिट, पगार बुक.
SaaS for Bharat.
Correct. वो 50 चीजें हैं, right? Now there's another set of personas who's like, यार मैं काम करता हूँ दिन भर 12-14 घंटे, अब मेरे को आगे टाइम पास करना है, एकदम भौकाल टाइम पास करना है. And these are the kind of words that are very, very easy to understand for our audience, right? और तुम भौकाल बोलोगे, हुआ बोलोगे यार ये कैसी लैंग्वेज है, right? But if you talk to these users in that way, they'll think that you're one of them, right? ShareChat is very different from YouTube in that context, right? YouTube you go with the utility कि मैं आधा घंटा spend करूंगा, सीरियल देखूंगा या हो सकता है पढ़ाई कर ली, right? ShareChat है कि दिन में कभी भी बोर हो रहा हूँ, खोल के भौकाल टाइम पास, right? The creators understand the consumer motivation, right? And they'll be sitting in the towns and villages having these conversations with people to understand कि यार like क्या चल रहा है आजकल. And the creator aspect is actually extremely important to give you a typical persona, right? Like why actually ShareChat, Moj, all of these kind of apps are growing. 12-14 hours you're doing work. More likely actually that you're mid-20s, male, female, and you've done some random undergraduate degree, right? Or maybe even 12th, right? अब तुम टियर 3 इंडिया में काम कहाँ से मिलेगा? या तो तुम एग्जाम की तैयारी कर रहे हो, कोई गवर्नमेंट एग्जाम की,
SSC, UPSC,
या इंग्लिश सीखने की कोशिश कर रहे हो,
Correct.
या तुमने कहीं टाइपिंग का कोर्स करा हुआ है, राइट? आई एम वेरी डिफरेंट फ्रॉम माई पेरेंट्स जो कि धोती साड़ी पहन के घूमते हैं. मैं तो ऑलरेडी जीन्स वगैरह पहन रहा हूँ. सो आई एम एस्पिरेशनली मच क्लोजर टू अ टियर 1 यूजर, राइट? नाउ हाउ डू आई गेट देयर? वो देखते हैं कि लोग भौकाल कंटेंट बना रहे हैं और उनमें से कुछ लोग 1 साल में ऑडी में घूम रहे हैं, right? And now this is the democratization power of a product like ShareChat, right? Now theoretically, if you're smart, if you're good, you have a good story, you have some basic editing skills, you can become that guy. Now there's commentary to be done here कि यार like ये तो प्रोडक्टिविटी ओवरऑल मैक्रो लेवल पे हैम्पर करेगा, राइट? तुम सबको कंटेंट क्रिएटर बना के इकोनॉमी तो बढ़ा नहीं सकते. बट that's the socialist, I would say, point of view, right? Now, if you take the capitalist point of view, we are still enabling these people, right? At some point, some of these guys will have a much better life than their peers.
Correct.
Although it might not be as how do I put it, a noble mission ki jobs milega, we're still enabling their life to be much better. Again, not a lot of people understand it. And that's been my challenge, like explaining to investors, explaining to founders, PMs, कि यार ये ShareChat पे why do you spend 3 years in ShareChat trying to build a product? Like क्यों good morning message बनवाना है? मैं बोला यार तुम you're taking the wrong point of view. We're solving a problem for the users which is massive, and that's where the value lies.
Yeah. Well, awesome. This was a good one.
Yeah.
Do you have any closing thoughts for the audience? How to look at Bharat?
I'd say leave your preconceived notions aside, right? Like look at it from first principles, talk to users, and as I said, like you'll find a gold mine there.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Mithun. This was fun.
Thanks for having me on the show.